Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Good morning, everyone.
Okay.
We're glad you're here today. We're going to begin shortly. So I think all the legislators are here and seated. Before we start, first, I'm Deborah Owen. I'm the VP of Government Relations for the Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce. But I'd like for us to say the Pledge of Allegiance, and our flag is over here on this corner. So I'm going to start with Rick. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Again, I'm Deborah Owen from the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber hosts about 3 of these legislative coffees during the month of February. We'll have our next Saturday, and then we'll skip a week, and then on the 4th Saturday we'll have another. We believe, of course, that an informed and engaged population is key to our community's success. The Chamber is active in peer protecting and representing the needs of our business community along with our legislators. A special thank you to our major sponsor, AARP. In addition, thank you to other event sponsors, Sioux Falls Education Association and the League of Women Voters. At this point in time, Melanie Bliss is, here she is. She'll be our moderator today. I want to thank you all before she takes the stand and helps moderate this event for us. I know all of us know this, but just to remind you, is we're a community of people who work together to help our state grow and to help our kids learn and to have healthy and strong families. So I ask that you have a decorum today, and be polite. These legislators are serving. They work long days on your behalf, and they deserve all the decorum we can provide for them today. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. I wish to thank today Rick Norris, who is interpreting for everyone. If you can't see him and you need to, please come over to this section. And please make space for people to sit. If anybody's uncomfortable, please space yourselves out. Okay. So due to COVID, we are not collecting questions in person. Remember the people that come flying down and pick up your card and take it away? You have to write the questions outside and put them in the drop boxes at the front door. We'll not be doing any of that collecting today because of COVID. And I encourage you to write all of your questions so that we have enough questions to go through for the whole time that we'll be here. We're starting at 10 and we are going to finish at 11:30. So, whether you're joining us today in person or virtually via the chamber or Argus Leaders live streams, welcome to the first legislative coffee of 2022. I am representing the League of Women Voters, and I will be your moderator. Today we have legislators from District 6, 11, and 15. Be sure to pick up your handy-dandy photo map of each of your legislators and what districts they're from. And there's a whole bunch of them at the front desk. Before we get into the program, I have a couple of things to talk to you about. If you have access to an email account on your phone or other electronics, you can feel free to email your questions to Sioux Falls LWV @gmail.com. This is on a digital slide, I believe. Is it up?
Yes.
Okay. And they're going to monitor this in the little room upstairs as they come in. Regardless of what method you use to ask your question, include bill numbers if possible, and please address issues occurring at the state level, not issues at the federal or local level. And remember to phrase the questions in such a way and address them so that all legislators can answer. If one of them is singled out and that's who the question is for, it will be dismissed. It has to be equal for all of the legislators. Know that I might combine questions on a similar topic, because that is how we're getting them organized. If your question does not get asked today, please feel free to say after the event to speak with the legislators individually or contact your legislators through email or phone calls. Does anyone have a cell phone in their pocket? Please turn them off. There is a reward for the first one that goes off. Also, we ask you not to talk to each other in this room because the acoustics are so wonderful. We can hear exactly what you're saying and you overbear on the legislators. You can go out to the hallway and talk all you want. Today's format is as follows. Each legislator will introduce themselves, indicate what district they represent, committees on which they serve, and how long have they served in the legislature. Legislators will have 90 seconds to respond to questions. Once your time is up, as indicated by the timer, we will move on to the next legislator. You see where the timer is? She's sitting right there. And she's the nicest person. But man, after 90 seconds, we will get the wet noodles out. Please don't go over your time. And know that in this process, there is no rebuttal time. Legislators, if you wish to respond to a question, raise your hand, and I will call on you when it is your turn. As we near the end of our coffee today, each legislator will have an opportunity for a 90-second closing statement to comment further on issues brought up or to comment on a topic that was not covered in the questions. There's our 90 seconds, she'll have a sign, and then at 30 seconds, she'll have a time, and then you'll know that you have the time is up. Oh, she has a 1-minute one too. So we will keep you on track on time. So we will start the introductions on my far left with Senator Otten.
Hello, I'm Senator Herman Otten from District 6. Thanks for being here today. I represent the communities of Key Lennox, Harrisburg, and 2 parts of Sioux Falls. Currently, I am on the Ag and Natural Resources Committee, Taxation Committee, and I'm chair of the Senate Local Governments Committee. And this would be my 10th year in the legislature.
Good morning. I'm State Senator Reynolds Nassau from District 15. I do bring regrets this morning from Jamie Smith and Linda Duba, who both had prior commitments. They will be here next week and the following week to make sure that you have an opportunity to visit with them. They simply had prior commitments today. I spend about 5 hours a day in the Appropriations Committee is where I spend most of my time. I also serve on legislative procedure and retirement law. And this is my 6th year in the legislature. I am the only Democrat up here today, and so it has felt longer than 6 years.
Senator Stelzer.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. I'm Senator Jim Stelzer. I represent District 11, which is generally Marion Road and out west of Wildwater West and from 57th Street to Benson Road. I serve on, this is my 10th session as well. I spent 2 terms or 4 years in the House, and now I've served I'm in my 3rd term in the Senate. I serve on Commerce and Energy, Judiciary, Military and Veterans Affairs, and Taxation Committees. And then during the off session, I also serve on the Executive Board.
Good morning. I'm Representative Mark Willardson, also from District 11. For now, I'm in my 14th year, although not all consecutive. I've always been in the House. I'm termed out of the House, and due to redistricting last November, I'm moved to District 9, where I'll be running for the Senate. Senator Steinhauer is elected to retire. I've always served on the Commerce and Energy Committee, and I also serve on Transportation. So looking forward to having a good dialogue today.
Good morning, I'm Representative Aaron Elward from District 6. Senator Otten sent us two little pieces of southern Sioux Falls, the southwest and southeast part, T, Lenox, and Harrisburg. This is my second session of my first term, so kind of a newbie here. And then I serve on Health and Human Services and Judiciary. And it's good to see everybody out here this morning. Looks like a little better turnout than last year, so thanks for coming out.
Are you ready to start? You'll have to raise your hand to get my attention. If I don't call on you, you can say something. First question, government transparency. Transparency in government is a goal for community advocates. Is it an issue for legislators?
Well, thank you for the question. I guess I don't really see transparency as being an issue. I think that the legislature, for the most part, holds its meetings in open session. Particularly as they deal with bills. Each bill that's presented to the system and nominated to go forward as such gets a hearing. I totaled them up yesterday. I think there's like 551 bills between the House and the Senate. And so each one of those bills will have a hearing in committee, and if it's deemed appropriate and passes, it'll go forward to the floor, and then it'll switch to the other house and go through the same process. So I feel we have a open and transparent form of government. Most everyone now has email, so my email box was jammed full by a couple of issues this week on that part, but I've spent a lot of time going through them and getting through that, so I've answered a number of them on there. So I think we have a pretty open and transparent form of government.
Senator Stelzer?
Yeah, just to continue with what Senator Willard, I'm promoting him early. He still has a primary to get through his general election. But every committee meeting that's held in the Capitol is live streamed on the internet. If you want to participate in a committee, and I've been on the technology committee, every committee room is now set up so that you can testify via Microsoft Teams. So our afternoon sessions are broadcast on public broadcastings, where you can see if I take a cup of or drink of my coffee or whatever. Our executive board meetings, our task force meetings are all streamed live during the summer. So the legislature tries very hard to be transparent. Probably any issue we have is other subordinate bodies that we've had to have some legislation to force them to be transparent. But if you have something you think we're not transparent, we'd certainly be willing to chat with you afterwards.
Yes, thank you. I disagree with my two colleagues to my right. The most important decisions in here continue to get made behind closed doors in the Republican House and Senate caucus. And since they're in the room, they sometimes forget that other people are in that room where those decisions are made. Back in 2006, I helped put a measure on the ballot to limit the use of the state airplane to state business that passed 55-45. And what I found is it's actually easier for me to have activists who are writing and basically doing Freedom of Information Act requests at the state level to get flight records from our governor than it is as an appropriator to find out where your state airplane is being used. So I think that there are serious problems of transparency. Almost everything is hidden, and then we carve out a few exceptions for what things are public records, which is exactly the opposite of what it should be. So if you're not a member of the supermajority party, I think there's a feeling that there's an awful lot of secrecy that goes on in here.
Well, I will have to disagree with Senator Decimal on that. Our government is nowhere near that hidden and extremely open to individuals. And I believe our government should be transparent to the people. Obviously, he's going to have a little different take on it because he's not involved in all of our conversations anymore than we're involved in all of their conversations. So I am a firm believer in government being transparent to its people. You know, when we had the special session call last year, the Senate was all in favor of releasing all of our names. I was in favor of that also, and I believe that's an official action of your legislator, and I believe items like that should be open to the public.
I'll just add to that briefly. Overall, I think it's pretty good, but realizing nothing's ever going to be perfect. And if you look through the bills that we have out there, I mean, there's a handful of bills from what I remember last year and this year as well that try to improve that. So I think there are a number of us that realize that it's not A+ perfect, but I would say it's pretty darn good overall.
Here's a question on Medicaid expansion. Senate Bill 186 would expand Medicaid eligibility and enable many uninsured persons to access health care at minimal cost to the state. Will you support?
I just don't always want to go first. I want to give them a chance. Yeah, I'll take that. So Medicaid expansion is long overdue. One of the dumbest things South Dakota ever did was fail to expand Medicaid. It would expand care to about 42,000 people. The Biden administration has built in an additional FMAP contribution. We could do this. We could pay for Medicaid for the next 5 years for about $3.9 million, which is just a little more than we spent on the governor's new airplane. And you could have health care, Medicaid expansion for the next 5 years. I haven't made up my mind, but I think that Senator Steinhauer has a pretty good idea about taking some of this additional FMAP that we're getting. I see that he's I didn't notice it until just now. He's back there. Yeah, FMAP. I'm sorry. It's the federal. I use that acronym all the time. FMAP. Can anybody help me out quick? Federal matching. It's basically the federal share of the match. So most Medicaid expenditures are between, we get like 56% from the federal government and 44% that we pay for. This would be 90-10 for the expansion population, and we get an extra 5% across the board on that. So that would help us pay for it. And so in terms of the Steinhauer bill, well, what that would do is allow us to put some of those funds aside and then use that to pay for those costs for the next decade or so to smooth implementation of the plan. So yes, I'm firmly in favor of it. Although I don't support this Medicaid expansion bill, I'm going to go with the people and their vote in November.
Anyone else? Okay. Representative Wilson?
All right, thank you. Senate Bill 186 is Senator Steinhauer's bill. I'd like to thank Senator Steinhauer. He has worked tirelessly on this issue and has mapped out a very good plan that he's presented in Senate Bill 186. I've signed on to the bill as a sponsor. I think this is good common sense for South Dakota, and I'd like to thank the good senator for all his work on that.
He's seated 3 rows down with the wonderful hair of my client. Senator Fulton?
Thank you. I guess I am opposed to the expansion. We're going to be doing this, yes, primarily at the beginning with federal money, but we've gone from $18 trillion in debt in 2015 to $30 trillion in debt now, and we're going to do this on borrowed money. One example where this will be a problem, currently about 20% of dental patients are on Medicaid. And they project that this will go to 40%. So you're going to take 20% of their business that is currently paid by the individual or an insurance company and put it on Medicaid, which is a vastly reduced payment to your dentist. Your rural dentists are going to get hurt really bad with this, as are some of the rural clinics, when they go from private insurance to this federal government paying for it. And there is no guarantees that the federal government is going to continue funding this at the high level. And if you pass the one that's on the ballot, we are not even eligible for any waivers. We will have to take whatever the federal government gives us as they present it, and we will have no option to say this would work better for South Dakota, so I can't support it.
Representative Hoyer?
I'll just add to that. I agree with Senator Stalzer. I think no matter what party you're in, I think you probably agree that the federal spending is out of control. At some point, you got to wonder who's going to continue to pay for this stuff. Unless you're a modern monetary theorist, economist, you might think different. But I can't get on board with this.
So I can pretty much agree with almost everything that was said up here from one aspect to the other. Senator Steinhauer put a lot of time and effort into this. That has come forward with a good proposal. And it makes a good point through our conversations in the legislature about putting together a bill that probably is better than what's on the ballot. With that said, though, I'm really not a fan of the expansion and might just wait to see what the people decide. Leave it up to them is kind of the direction I lean.
This is HB 1112. What is the intent of the Crossbow Bill? If it is to increase participation of seniors, how about providing free licenses and no drawing registrations and changing the disability form?
What was the bill number again?
1112. It is considered to be the Crossbow Bill. Senator Stalzer.
Well, currently, people over 75 have the option with the doctor's permit to use a crossbow because as they grow older, and I'm 75, so I'm sort of in that category, the ability to pull back a bow that has the power to dispatch the critter, or the deer primarily, efficiently, effectively, and not create suffering and animals that run off and eventually die bleeding death without being found. So basically, I don't have the numbers with me. Representative Kevin Jensen has a lot of statistics that show the deer that are taken with crossbow or with a regular bow are done at approximately the same distances. And the crossbow has more power and is going to be more lethal and much kinder to the animal. So basically, it's just, you won't have to go to a doctor if you're 65 and older to get an exemption.
Anyone else? Quickly.
All right, thank you. I initially signed on to the bill. Kevin Jensen, as mentioned, is the prime, and he had come to me and explained, his side of the story, pretty much with the bill that, as people get older and our society is aging, that this would be a good thing to be able to keep people in the field and hunting a little bit longer. Since then, my mailbox has been flooded. I think I've heard from every person that owns a bow and arrow in South Dakota from it, and they're very much opposed to it, and so for some good reasons. The bill has been scheduled to the House of Agriculture and Natural Resources but it has not been scheduled for a hearing. So I'm looking forward to the hearing so that I can learn more about it and hopefully make up my decision.
This is a House bill. It hasn't been heard on the House side yet. I'm on the Senate. So I'm just looking at this for the first time, but I do think the amendment that he's put on there, 1112B, limiting this just to residents is a good idea, and I think it makes it for a better bill. So I guess I'll take a look at it when I comes to the Senate side, if that makes it that far. Thank you. By the way, FMAP is Federal Medical Assistance Percentage.
Transgender, Senate Bill 46. Why do you think it's okay to pass legislation that will likely be challenged in court, which results in increased cost to the taxpayers? Senate Bill 46.
So I understand the concerns about being afraid of being sued over this particular bill, and I guess if that happens, I guess so be it. We can't always control what action by our city governments or our state governments or any government, matter of fact, level of government is going to be referred or taken to the court. So I guess we just have to look at the issue as it stands, make a decision from there, and if the public or groups disagree with those decisions, they have that right to take it back to the people and take it to the courts.
Senator Sullivan.
Yeah, I guess Leah Thomas, Pennsylvania swimmer, who is breaking all the women's records. He was ranked 460 something among male swimmers, and now he's setting world records as a female. This is just plain not fair to our women. They're losing scholarship opportunities because some biological male is competing and taking her slot. They're sitting on the bench, perhaps. It's just totally a matter of fairness to women. The reason we have separate women's sports is all the biological reasons I could give for why a male should not be competing in women's events. So I strongly support it. We're one of approximately 10 states now that have similar laws. There are lawsuits in a couple other states, and I guess, as I said on the floor of the Senate, you can't put a monetary price on doing what's right.
I'll weigh in. I was a no vote. I was a no vote last year. Basically, because I think the High School Activities Association had a pretty good handle on things. I don't think we had a problem in South Dakota, and I don't think we do have a problem. So, for that reason, I think the High School Activities Association is taken care of, and the best government is the government closest to the people. So, for that reason, I was a no. As far as the court case part of it, if the legislature were to cower every time that somebody threatened to sue us about a bill that we were working on or a bill that was passed, we wouldn't get anything done. So I don't think, as a legislator, I don't look at a potential lawsuit as a threat to a bill for that part. I look at it as to what's the best thing for South Dakota.
I want to say something. South Dakota is the only state without an early education council. We get no state money for early education. Our teachers are 50th and 51st in the country in teacher pay. The only thing we're number one is the number of students graduating with student loan debt. This is education policy from the Republican Party. It does, because this is the key education policy coming out of the Republican Party. This is the only one they're running commercials on. They aren't talking about pre-K. They aren't talking about K-12. The only other policy they have is an inflation adjustment of 6% in a world with 7% inflation. So they think our teachers should be 1% worse off. Trans women are women. Trans men are men. We have a really great policy. South Dakota High School Activities Association has a great policy. We had one trans athlete in 8 years. One trans athlete in 8 years. And we've had one male trans athlete that was rejected. We have a really great policy, and that policy should be extended to the collegiate level to stop the problem. So this bill also has 2 subjects, which is something that sometimes my colleagues like to lecture about. And so what we should have is one policy saying the South Dakota High School Activities Association has a great policy. And we should have passed a resolution saying, you know what, NCAA, you should be like South Dakota and adopt our really great policy. And stop picking on trans kids and just let them be able to play with kids. Because they have higher suicidal ideation, they are more at risk, and what they need is acceptance and support, and they don't get it from their state government, and we should do a lot better. I'm embarrassed and I'm angry about it.
Thank you very much. This one has no bill number. Will you close the prison in Sioux Falls and make a new campus centered around rehabilitation? What are you doing to help prisoners improve their lives?
I've got a bill for that. So one of the bills I have coming up next week is an ombudsman bill, because last year when the South Dakota Department of Corrections had people that didn't feel like they could report to anybody about what was going on there in terms of sexual harassment, an unsafe working environment, a shortage of workers, and people fleeing and taking jobs at Costco because it pays better than working for the state's correctional system, that I brought a bill that's going to say we need an internal reporting. So instead of somebody having to write an anonymous letter and leak it to the press to be able to talk about what's going, there should be something in state government that gives state employees a voice so they can talk about what's going on in our prison system. One of our problems in our penitentiary system, both at the women's prison in Pierre and Springfield and Sioux Falls and a work release site in Rapid City, is we don't do enough on rehabilitation. Oftentimes people are sentenced with a drug crime and we don't even give them treatment while they're in the penitentiary system. And so we need to focus far more on being able to work on drug and alcohol addiction and be able to do rehabilitation. We have a report, and it's amazing. If you send a report out to engineers, they came back, I think they wanted $608 million to build new penitentiaries across the state. I think we should reform our drug laws and work more on rehabilitation and stop building and spending so much money on prisons.
This one is on surrogacy, and that's how many questions we have on surrogacy. And the second one is about Senate Bill 137. There have been no legal issues in the 30 years surrogacy has occurred in our state. Do you support keeping surrogacy legal and safe? That's kind of a compilation of all of those.
I mean, I'm sure there's other people that have maybe opinions on this, but I'm always happy to share. I believe in freedom. I believe in reproductive freedom. I believe that people should be able to do what they want with their bodies. And I believe that women should have control over their bodies, and that families should be able to create, that South Dakota citizens should be able to create families when and how they want to. And that the government should stop getting in the way of that.
We will have no more clapping on any sides. Does anyone else have something on surrogacy?
I do, thank you. So, I'll use different words than Senator Neville does with this, but Senate Bill 137 is the concept that I have always supported. I believe it is not my business to get into your business, whether you want to have a surrogate and have a child for whatever reason that may be. My only concern on the past is in the contracts, make sure that there are not any types of termination agreements in those contracts. I do not support that, but as in my business, if you work out deal to have somebody carry a baby because there may be some medical issues or whatever. So I don't believe it is our place to be involved in that.
Anyone from this side? Yes,
I'll just point out what we've heard from the pro-life side. If you believe that life begins at conception, 97% or 93% of the embryos that are created are eventually destroyed. And so the right to life argument on this is that if it could potentially be done in a manner where they're not over-creating and fertilizing embryos to be later destroyed, I could maybe support this particular bill. But to me, it's a life issue, just the same as abortion is.
anyone else? Okay, this is a subject of education, House Bill 1308. This legislation harms the collective bargaining process by taking away educators' voices. The question is, how can this help education and students when it will cause a chasm between administration and staff and pit various staff groups against each other? And there's several of these. There may be one other bill number, but this one says House Bill 1308. Yes.
I'll touch on this just real quick. There was a bill that came out, maybe 2 weeks ago now from Representative Soy. Very good intentions on that bill. But then, there was a lot of concern on that from a lot of school districts. So this was a new bill that came out that tried to focus more on what they were aiming for with that first bill. Teachers are very, very important. But when you have a hard time hiring custodians, cooks, other positions within the schools, I think everybody can agree that whatever the industry is out there right now, there's shortages. So this is a bill that tries to, give more incentives to, those positions like custodians and cooks to get those people into school districts to help out. I know different school districts have different ways of doing things, and maybe this just pinpoints certain school districts, but I don't think this hurts any collective bargaining or anything. It allows school districts to help out with other positions. That's the goal of it. So I agree with the bill.
This one, I'm sorry.
No,
I missed.
yes, sorry. I'll take them all,
Senator
Melanie. So I'm glad that this is a replacement from 1216. 1216 was an absolutely terrible, horrible, no good, stripping basic human rights from people bill. And so stripping human rights, your right to form a union or join a union is a basic human right, and it's recognized by countries around the world. For somebody to bring a bill forward and to say after 2 years of COVID, where our teachers have kept the schools open, where the food service workers and the custodians have been there keeping us safe, you're going to come up and take away their collective bargaining rights right now?
That's not the bill.
That was the bill that you said was brought up in good intention. I think it was bad intention. The Republican Party has stripped collective bargaining rights from the tech schools, they stripped them from the Board of Regents, and now they were coming for the teachers. And finally, a bunch of people in this room pushed back, and that terrible, horrible 1216 bill got rolled back, and now they brought forward a bill 1308, which is unnecessary. Is it really too much trouble for a superintendent to have to go and talk to the custodian collective bargaining unit, or to talk to the food service workers and secretaries and the teachers before they go and get a bonus? So let's respect our school employees and go talk to them and quit trying to go around the process.
So with all of that said, did any of our tech schools close or shut down or lose students, lose any instructors? What about our colleges? No, they did not.
Here's one that I don't understand quite about the subject, but it has a bill number 1322. Cottage foods. Will you support this bill? If not, what are your reservations or concerns? So, Representative Collier?
Yeah, I'll take this to start out. So this bill was heard last year as well, and this is actually, from what I believe and what I've heard from the prime, a little less aggressive. I believe it got voted down in committee last year, but it's a food freedom bill. This coming from the angle of if you're making something at home and maybe selling it at food markets, things like that, just maybe cut back regulation on it a little bit and do away with that. And again, it's a food freedom bill. I fully support it.
Okay, we have a whole bunch on food tax. It looks like reference is Senate Bill 166 on all of them. What are your thoughts on eliminating tax? I'm going to have two that I read. What are your thoughts on eliminating tax on SNAP eligible foods and benefits and worries and hopes? The food tax is the most regressive tax because low-income people pay a higher percentage of their income than their wealthier counterparts. Do you agree the removal of food tax is good for all South Dakotans? If you do not agree, how would you create a fairer system? Okay, Senator Robb.
So back when we did the indirect sales tax, I was adamant that when the revenues increase, we need to roll that tax back, and I still support that. Now, whether the legislature moved forward with reducing tax on food or just taking that half-penny sales tax off is yet to be decided if it's going to happen at all. I will be supporting an effort to reduce that sales tax.
Representative Collier?
Yeah, so things may be getting heated up here a little bit this morning between Democrats and Republicans. I'll say this is, I believe this is Senator Nesbitt's bill, and I fully support that. If it's lowering taxes, I think it's ever since, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, ever since Dugard's first or second term as governor, we continue to have a surplus. So that would show me that at the end of the day, we're taxing folks too much. So if we can hit it at any angle, I fully agree with it. I'll fully support this bill. I think it's a good bill.
Senator Nesbitt?
Yeah, Senate Bill 166 is my bill, and the way it's currently drafted, I have it so it would be a 5-year phase out. But as we're getting further into this session, I'm convinced that we can just eliminate it. And so I do have two amendments out there to take that off of there. And it is part of this broader conversation we're having right now about it seems time for a tax cut. And so should we go from 4.5 to 4% on the overall sales tax, or should we just eliminate food? I've been working on this since it was on the ballot, since we put it on the ballot and gathering petitions in 2003, and it was on the ballot in 2004. And I really do see this as a compromise. So the Appropriations Committee has been meeting behind closed doors and considering possibilities. This bill is scheduled to be up on Wednesday, but I did talk to Senator Johns, who's the chair of that committee, and it will be pushed back a week because I have that ombudsman bill I talked about earlier is going to be up at the exact same time. So it will be back one more week. So I'm hoping that we can see this as a compromise and we can give a tax cut to the people of South Dakota, and one that's a lot more substantial than just eliminating the tax on bingo or eliminating your registration fee on your concealed carry permit. I just think it's unconscionable that you have to pay 6.5% to buy baby formula in South Dakota.
Thank you very much. This one is, oh, I'm sorry. I was referring on to another tax.
Yeah, well, and I'll probably get to hear both of them in the tax committee. Just one thing to point out, anyone who is on SNAP, which is the equivalent of food stamps, does not pay sales tax. However, with that said, I am in support of general tax cut. I have signed on to bills that remove the tax from food in the past. And again, I can support some form of that as long as we have the revenue to cover it. And this may be the year that we do. But again, there are also proposals to remove the tax that have cent, or at least part of that. And I could get behind that too. And I guess we'll just have to see where that gets negotiated out. But certainly support some form of a tax reduction.
This one is on property tax. It's House Bill 1039. 1039 would assess agricultural tax value partly on basis of soil characteristics and suitability for cropping. In the interest of natural resource conservation and fairness, will you support?
Melanie.
Okay, you'll be second.
So this bill is basically a western bill. The cattle ranchers out there have been having a tough time. The cattle market is depressed. There's not a lot of rain out there last year, and they've been suffering terribly out there. So this is their effort to reduce the taxes a little bit to help them out. And their taxes have been rising, and I've always been a proponent to try to do something for these cattle ranchers out there. But with that said, these numbers might not be 100% spot on, but they're pretty close. The taxes that they're paying on grasslands out there are about $8 an acre. In Lincoln County, they're about $24 an acre for the crop. So anytime you make a change to these tax classifications and you reduce them on one end, the taxes don't go away. You just move somewhere else. And all that's going to do is bring up the taxes on crop ground in my district. And I have to be concerned about that when they're already paying $24 an acre here. So as sympathetic as I am to them, and really would love to find a way to help them out somehow, I don't know in good conscience if I can support this effort and raise the taxes on my constituents in District 6 and everybody around here.
Thank you. You know, the best tax is the tax that somebody else pays. In our property tax system, there's three different parties that pay the tax. There's agriculture, there's commercial, and there's residential. If you give a tax break to residential, it's going to shift taxes to agriculture and commercial. If we give a tax break to agriculture, it's going to shift taxes to residential and commercial. The taxes are not going to go down. So we're splitting the pie up between those three groups. So for that reason, I can't support this bill. It does, it was heard in House Agriculture, went to the floor, and a fiscal note was requested. And what that means is that the financial people get together, analyze the change that's going to occur, and then they report back. And we haven't had that report yet, so that's why the bill's hung up.
Yeah, along with this one being hung up on fiscal note, ever since I've been in the legislature, the ag community cannot agree on how they should be taxed. And I know when it comes to the taxation committee, that's going to be the question. Which ag group is going to get their valuation? Some want it on production, some want it on soil type with how much rain they get. And they've been studying this for years. And they were supposed to have given us a report a couple of years ago, and we still have not gotten the data back from the agricultural community as to what they think should be the basis for taxing agricultural land. So whether this goes or not is to a large extent going to depend upon how many ag people get behind it and how many oppose it.
Anyone else?
I would just agree, and to what I don't know to say, I suspect I'm not going to see this on the Senate floor.
We have a whole bunch of marijuana and meth questions. And they all pretty much come up to, why do you support removing protections for medical marijuana patients? Voters also approved full legalization. Will you support the will of the voters this year? And there's about 10 of these. Did I say it again? Why do you support removing protections for medical marijuana patients? Voters also approved full legalization. Will you support the will of the voters this year? Representative Allier?
I'll take this first on here. So we've seen a lot of bills related to cannabis right out of the gates. I think there's still some more to come. I guess I voted in line, or have voted in line through Health and Human Services Judiciary Committee with as close as we can get to IM 26. A lot of the bills that have come out, we've heard opponent testimony as far as there's a committee created for an oversight committee, and a lot of that stuff hasn't went through there. That committee hasn't got a chance to review a lot of that stuff, so I have a hard time getting on board with a lot of that because of that fact, but then also some of it I do disagree with as well, so I'll leave it at that.
Senator Salter?
I spent my summer studying marijuana as part of the medical marijuana task force. We had two, one for recreational, one for medical. And we have tried extremely hard to follow the intent of medical marijuana. This bill had 95 sections. Some of them were fine and we left them alone. Some of them needed some tweaking, and there have been approximately 30 bills introduced in the Senate. They have all been ones that were approved by the joint medical and recreational committees. And in most instances, the industry has been somewhat neutral on them. We haven't had too many where they adamantly opposed. The big question is, what is medical and what is recreational, and where do the two cross? Right now, we have a bill in the Senate that we'll be discussing later next week of how many plants on home grow and whether we'll allow that. But a couple bills I had on it, one, well, if we get recreational, we will put a tax, which was in Amendment A. And then I took one of the sections where there was a protection for attorneys, turned that into protection for anyone who has a state license, so that they will be able to. And then we removed 5 or 6 other sections, got rid of them, but we put it all in one, and actually this makes sure there is no group that's left out of protections. So we have tried to follow the will of the people, but in 95 sections, it's not always possible.
Thank you. I too was on the marijuana committee on the summer study. I was on the adult side. The question was, why do you support removing protections? I wish they would have been a little more specific, because I don't see that, we have been acting to remove protections for medical marijuana people. I would just say that not only on the subject of marijuana, but on other subjects like even property taxes, or the legislature meets and grills and goes over those subjects. You're trying to make it what's best for South Dakota on that part. And I honestly feel that that's what we've been doing in the marijuana field, whether it's medical or adult, on that. You know, the will of the people spoke. Believe me, we heard that loud and clear. So we're trying to make this so that it works for South Dakota on that part. And not everybody will agree with me on that because they've got their own little pet thing that, you know, that they wanted, and the legislature's maybe tweaking it, but we're still trying to do what's best for the state.
Senator Nestle?
Yeah, I think we should respect the will of the people, that we should do our best to match IM 26 and Amendment A, and we shouldn't forget why we're here, right? The governor sued over this, sent it to court, and which left the state paying on both sides of that case for a while. And that we knew this, I mean, all of the polling suggested this was going to pass. We should have made a lot more progress on this last year, but the governor seemed less interested in it a year ago. And so here we are, still working on this long after the fact. But we are making progress. There is bipartisan support, I think, for coming up with a medical marijuana program that will work, and hopefully we can get to a recreational legalization as well.
So I am a supporter of the medical marijuana. I supported it at the ballot box. My district overwhelmingly supported it. With that said, you know, what came out of that, there were some bills that needed to just kind of straighten some things out and make sure it worked. I've not always been a fan of all of those. I have voted against a couple of them. I thought they were overly restrictive and taking away some of the things that the voters wanted. But at the end of the day, we have to have a system of laws that's going to work, and that's what some of these bills are about. But I do support the medical marijuana program.
This is about Senate Bill 159. And while people are checking this, remember that Senate bills have 3 numerical numbers and House bills have 4. So Senate Bill 159, what are your thoughts on exempting the severely mentally ill from the death penalty? Representative Hoyer?
I'll take this right away. I'm the prime on this on the House side. So, you know, I think over the years, if I remember right, you know, they've tried this bill in the past. They've tried a full death penalty repeal. For me, it comes down to, I have a hard time saying it's the state's job to put somebody to death. So you can go down a lot of different rabbit holes with this one, I think, but, you know, Senator Johns is leading this one up. I know there's a good number of people on the House side that agree with this. And it just comes down to that. If you want to get into biblical areas, I don't believe it's the state's role to do that. And, you know, we're just hitting it from this angle as far as the mentally ill goes. So.
This is not the first rodeo for this bill, as Representative Allward mentioned. And I have supported it in the past. The problem area is defining severe mental illness. I would submit that someone that willingly kills another person, you know, has some mental issues. And so how far do those go? How do we define severe mental illness? I think the intent of this bill is good. We'll see what happens in the Senate. And, you know, if it comes to the House, I'm probably going to be supportive again. We'll see what the language in the bill is when it gets there.
Yeah, thank you. I am supportive of this bill, and And particular section 2 here, I think might allay some of the concerns to the good representative to my right, that the death penalty may not be imposed upon any person, then it has 3 sections after that, and the 3 conditions. So 1, who was severely mentally ill at the time of the commission of the offense. 2, whose severe mental illness was manifested and medically documented prior to the commission of the offense. So it has to be before, not after. And 3rd, whose offense was a product of the person's severe mental illness or due to an irresistible impulse that was caused by the person's severe mental illness. So I do think this is a good bill. I'm glad that the good representative to my right is the House Prime on this, and I look forward to supporting this bill. Thank you.
This is House Bill 1012 and House Bill 1337. How many Black, Indigenous, and other students have you spoken to about the impact bills like House Bill 1011 and House Bill 1337, which try to restrict what American history can be taught?
Is it 10, 12, and what was it?
1012 and 1337. Anyone? Senator Nessa?
There was a good a story in a Mississippi newspaper that I tweeted out yesterday. If you can find me, it's just Reynolds Nessa out there on Twitter, that I posted, that it was about a conservative Republican college student who went and took a course on critical race theory, in part just wanting to see what it was about, and she found herself talking to her Republican friends saying, you really need to come and listen and understand and see the debate, that this really isn't what you're getting from listening to Fox News. And so if you read the bill, at a minimum it needs a title amendment, because the title is an act to protect students from critical race theory, but then the bill actually has nothing to do with critical race theory. Right? It talks about, it should be something like nobody should have to put up with any teaching that hurts their feelings, or something like that. If you are a young person and you're learning about Wounded Knee for the first time and it doesn't upset you, if you are studying about the history of racism in America and you see those pictures of lynchings and people smiling next to dead Black bodies hanging from trees, and that doesn't upset you, I don't know if you're human or not. And so I think this bill is an attempt to try and chill education. I think it's based on a misconception about higher education, about what happens at our universities. Again, I teach economics at Augustana, and I'll just, in closing, say there's a lot of conservative ideas about free markets that lots of us teach every day. So I'll stop there. It's an unnecessary bill.
This is one called General Legislating. How do you know you are working in the best interest of your constituents? How do you know you are working in the best interest of your constituents?
I'll take a stab at that. Well, I guess my response to that would be is that we run for election every 2 years. And if your legislator gets reelected by the majority of individuals, I would say that they believe that you are working in their best interest.
I think this is a great question. It's one of the things that I find most difficult about being a state senator in District 15. I keep trying to find ways to be able to talk to you all. So that's why I really look forward to these events and to see people from my district that are out here in the audience. I like it when I see an email or from somebody in my district and you give me your phone number and your address and I can follow up on that. I do wish that there were better ways for us to communicate directly. I mean, one of the things I look at in my district is ways that my district votes on initiated measures. So, in my district, initiated measure 26 of Amendment A passed. I represent a district as well that voted against a ban on abortion twice. And so I talk to people, I come to events like this, I keep trying to reach out, and I encourage you to keep reaching out too. Give us phone calls, send us emails, and more importantly, continue to develop friendships with your representatives. We represent about 25,000 people. It really is possible for us to shake hands and talk to people. So please continue to reach out to us and help me be a better legislator.
We'll go right on down the aisle.
Okay. Yeah, I'm active in a very wide range of civic groups in the Sioux Falls area and across the state. And I guarantee the people I run into are not shy about telling me what they think about my votes. We get emails, we get phone calls. Again, if we're active and accessible, we have the discussion with constituents regularly. And I think that helps keep us grounded, and at least the people we have contact with feel very free to come and talk to us. I just had a situation where 6 of the pages spent about half an hour visiting with a couple of the senators this week, just asking us about different issues and why we feel the way we do, and how the process works and so on. And in most instances, we would like more feedback from the people in our districts, and we don't quite pay as much attention to out-of-staters or even people outside of our district, because we do represent a specific district. And as I've said at these before, Senator Nesbitt probably couldn't get elected in my district, and I couldn't get elected in his district. So we are certainly representing different constituencies.
Well, I agree with several of the previous comments. We try to attend events like this. We had Good Morning Sioux Falls a month ago, and so on, to try to connect with you and try to get a pipeline from you as far as your opinions on what's going on with that. I think that part of our responsibility as a legislator is to take our personal values and use those in the decision-making process from that. I think that's probably the reason why I couldn't get elected in Senator Nesbitt's district, and he probably couldn't get elected in mine, as the senator said. So I think, just the more interaction we can have, probably the best way is with email, because it's convenient for you. It comes to my email box. I would say this about emails. If you're doing a boilerplate email, I mean, if the organization that you belong to and you believe in has, sent you an email and said, hey, this is our stand on this, send it to all your representatives and senators. The first time I read that boilerplate, I do pay attention to it, but about the 25th time, I've already read it once, and so it's better if you use your own words and then put where you're from on it, because as Senator Stalzer said, we get a lot of emails from out of state, and that's not concerning for us.
Yeah, a lot of good things said here. A couple things I will just add. Especially early on in session, it's a little bit easier to respond to all the emails. But if you're in a certain district, like it's been said before, add your district number under your address. Those do take top priority, and then we go after that. But the other thing that I weigh out, and I hope, and I do think everybody does this, when you get elected to office, you take an oath to the state and the U.S. Constitution. So you have to take those things into play as well. If you get a large amount of people asking you to do something that goes against those oaths that you took, that's at times very tough. So just realize that as well. I think everybody does they try their hardest to represent their constituents. but they keep those other things in mind. So it's not an easy thing at times.
This is federal infrastructure investment money. Can federal infrastructure monies be used to improve water quality in our streams and rivers and avoid the effects from hazards and to reduce the effect of agricultural runoffs? Can federal infrastructure monies be used to improve water quality in our streams and rivers and avoid the effects from hazards and to reduce the effect of agricultural runoffs?
There is so much federal money that we've received. We just did a tour in appropriations this week of being able to spend some of that Biden ARPA money to build a brand new state healthcare lab in Pierre that would really be able to do a whole variety of drug testing, water testing, testing of fish, a whole variety of things that get COVID tests that are done there as well, which is going to be good. And then I've been talking to Secretary Roebling about using some of this money to do enhanced CRP, which is something I suspect the good senator to my left and I that are concerned about conservation, about habitat for pheasants, about clean water, and there's some really good federal money and programs out there that would allow us to do that. So I am hopeful that we're going to make a significant investment in that, particularly here in the Big Sioux watershed, to be able to do that out. They already have a good system that they're starting to do some of that on the James River, and they should extend that over to the Mississippi.
So Senator Nesbitt is correct with that, and he would know the nuances of that federal money and how it can be spent a little better, since he is on the appropriations committee. But with that said, with the water quality, there are some programs coming out through the state. Hopefully we get them funded specifically for the Big Sioux River, up and down this corridor here. There is a Prairie Buffer Strip program coming out. The governor's office is trying to fund that to help reduce some of the nitrates and phosphorus that is running in there. And then Game Fish Parks is working on a CRP program. A CREP is called CREP, is what the program is. Very similar to the one that's along the Jim River Basin. And they are trying to, and that one there is not fully, the eligible acres is still not fully allocated, so they are working on that yet too. But we just approved the plan in the Senate for the conservation districts, and if you would look through that plan that we just approved, water quality was a big issue in there. And I was surprised by the standards of the water quality for some of the bodies and how they've actually decreased over the last two plans. And that was a little disappointing to me that they decreased in the quality of the water in some of those. Not the standards it should be. So I'm an advocate for trying to clean that all up.
Anything else? Okay, this is an interesting one. House Joint Resolution 5001. Please explain the nature of your vote in committee with respect to Convention of States. It appears a yes vote is a vote to kill. It says HJR 5001.
It's the Convention of States bill that was heard in Senate State Affairs yesterday. It passed the House and is now in the Senate. The first motion was due pass, and then a substitute motion was made to refer it to the 41st day. The Constitution allows us 40 days. So it's an easy way of saying we're tabling your bill and it's not going to be heard again. There are ways to recover that. There could be a smoke out on the Senate floor, which has to be done Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. But anyway, the motion was first made to pass, then a substitute motion, and you deal with the substitute motion first. And since it got 5 votes yes and 4 votes no, the bill was deferred to a day that doesn't exist. So that's the process, and maybe in wrap up, I'll talk more about the actual convention states.
Amendment C, can you explain what Amendment C is? Why did you put it on the ballot? Yes. Senator Stelter.
A number of years ago, the citizens of South Dakota put on the ballot that if the legislature wants to spend new money, that we need a 2/3 vote on that particular issue. And so what Amendment C says is that an initiative measure that is proposed, or constitutional amendment proposed in that manner, would require a threshold of 60%, so that it would take a supermajority to raise taxes above, I think the number is $10 million over a 5-year period. But anyway, it's a chance to see if the people think they should be restricted. Currently, if you've got a bond issue for a school, that requires 60%. And so this is just a way to put on the ballot that if the the voters are going to raise taxes, it needs a supermajority, because we have only certain limited places to take that once it passes. And the two big ones are helping people with medical and so on, and teacher pay. Those two things account for 85% of our total budget. So if there are large budgets where we would be then faced with cutting something else or raising taxes.
Yeah, Amendment C is a legislative power grab. It's a legislature trying to take power away from you, and they're doing it in the most cynical way possible by moving it from putting it on the November ballot and moving it to the June ballot, where more Republicans vote because they tend to have more Republican primaries. And I think it's going to lose in court anyway. It's being challenged in court because it's two subjects. Because revenue and spending are two different things. The vast majority of spending that gets passed by the South Dakota legislature is in the G bill and in the supplemental bill, and it's passed with a simple majority vote. Vast majority. It's only special appropriations bills that get a 2/3 vote, and I assure you, the appropriators work really hard to stuff everything into the general bill. In fact, what we do is we take the governor's recommended budget and we just move that and make it our general bill. So all of the special things that she has in there ends up being spent. Remember last year that there were attempts on the House side to pull out the state airplane, put it in committee, put it on the floor of the House, and the House said, no, we don't think that the governor should get a new airplane. But of course it was in the G bill, so she got a new airplane. So my point is, this consolidates power in the legislature. You should definitely plan to go vote and vote no against C on the June election ballot. The whole reason it's there is to prevent Medicaid expansion, and the sponsor of the bill said so.
And what is a G bill?
The G bill is our general budget bill, sometimes referred to as the governor's bill or the general spending bill.
We have several about COVID. Will the legislature outlaw mask and vaccine mandates?
I'll just take a quick stab at this. I guess I haven't seen anything on the House side, and I don't believe on the Senate side as far as outlawing mask mandates. There's, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, please. As far as the vaccines go, I know there are a number of bills on the House side addressing those things, so I don't think there's anything that would outlaw them.
I haven't seen any bills to outlaw them as well. I think what I'm frustrated with just the lack of leadership. I mean, South Dakotans do look out for one another, and we could have done a lot better job of educating about how important it is to get vaccinated and boosted. And if you haven't been vaccinated and boosted, I encourage you to get vaccinated and boosted. If you're showing any symptoms at all, please wear a mask. and never let anybody try to take a mask off of you. You have that right to wear a mask. And for those who've traveled around the rest of the world, if you've ever been on a train in Thailand, when people have a cold, they just wear a mask because it's the kind thing to do to other human beings. So being kind to one another, look out for one another. I think South Dakotans can do that if we don't make fun of them while they're trying to just be kind to one another.
Yes.
I have to disagree with the good senator. I think we've had great leadership. I think our governor has kept the state open.
Thank you.
Fine.
I didn't say thank you to you, I said thank you that they stopped laughing. And they did stop laughing together. So, continue, Representative Wilson.
Well, I just think we've had good leadership. The state has stayed open. Our schools stayed open. Our economy is robust. And I think it's due to our governor's leadership. I think we've gone the right direction through COVID. I'll quit there.
I'll just
Senator Ollie?
just a little bit to that. I do believe this is the greatest state in the union, and I'm glad we stayed open in a lot of different areas in the last year. I won't be afraid to give Governor Nome some credit, but I also think the legislature needs some credit as well. I think they've had a big hand in that as well, and they don't. And this was before I was in there, but I don't think they get enough credit either, as far as keeping the state open and some of the bills that they voted down to allow that. So.
This is a, go ahead.
So I think we've had some pretty good leadership between the governor's office and the legislature on this. And how about making your own personal choices with it? I mean, at the end of the day, isn't it my choice? I'll grant that, makes sense for some businesses to have different rules in place and different practices. And I'm a little reluctant to tell them that they can't do that because that is their business. But, at the end of the day, I think we should have some provisions. And isn't it your choice whether to wear a mask or get vaccinated? Why is it the government's choice what you do?
Next question is emergency declarations. Will the legislature put a limit on the length of emergency, quote around emergency declarations by the governor?
No.
Okay. Going on to the next one. Is the merger of the two ag and natural resource state departments together working for all South Dakotans? That would be what, ag and natural resources. Is that working for you?
Let's see what you got.
That's right.
So I was not a proponent of this move last year to combine the two departments. I did feel that they have different interests and need to be represented differently that way. That said, Hunter Roberts, who's leading that department today, did a great job at his job. So far, things seem to be working out with that, and still keeping a watchful eye and to make sure that it continues to work properly for ag and for natural resources. But at this point, I cannot say that it is not working.
I'll just follow up on that. Pretty much agree with what the good senator next to me said. I'm just philosophically opposed to them being together. I think that the Department of Natural Resources really has a different aim of trying to make sure that we're maintaining clean air, clean water, protecting our environment, and agriculture is about making sure that agricultural regulations works for our farmers, ranchers, and other egg producers, and there can be conflict between those two goals, right? We want production, and we want, and we want clean air and water as well. So I think it's just philosophically better to have them in two different departments. But I haven't have time to really reflect on whether it's not working or not at this particular time. But I'm just philosophically opposed to them being in one department.
No. If I may. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to keep in mind, this is the governor's cabinet. This is how the governor organizes the people that help her get her job done. If the governor wants to have these two departments together, well then, I guess she's the one in charge and she's the one that gets to make that decision. Whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, remains to be seen in the court of public opinion. But it's the governor's cabinet, it's the governor's responsibility to, organize the people that help her in the way that she sees fit.
The time is up for questions. We have many unanswered questions, many. But we will move to the closing statements, and at the end, I will have a little thing to say after we do these closing statements. So please don't leave. I would like to commend the people in the radio and television and live stream who cannot see. There are a great many young children in this audience, and they have been extraordinarily well behaved. That is just a joy to see them. I can see them wiggle, but they haven't said anything, and they've learned to be a wonderful audience, and I think that's to be commended. So we'll start with closing statements. Each legislator will have 90 seconds to say what you like. We're going to start on my left and come down. So we'll start with Senator Fox.
Well, once again, thanks for coming out and providing us with your questions and thoughts. I mean, that's, what we need to hear. And it makes us do our jobs better when we can get the voice of the people. With that, I'm going to bring attention to one of my bills that I carry. And I sat on the summer study for affordable housing in the summer, and out of that, one of the bills that I'm bringing is Senate Bill 114, which will rebate contractors' excise tax back to an individual who is buying an affordable home. Those limits would be set by South Dakota Housing. We all know what housing is doing right now. It's kind of going through the roof, and it doesn't seem to be stopping for the cost. And this is a good way to get some money back to these individuals who are buying the most affordable new homes. So keep your eyes open for that.
Again, thank you all for coming out. Representative democracy is not a spectator sport, so thank you for actively participating and asking questions. The governor's cabinet does have to get approved by the Senate, and those two cabinet positions were folded together. One vote had gone the other way; they would still be separate departments. I spend most of my time trying to create a budget that works for all of South Dakota, and the bills I'm bringing this year are really focused on workers. I'm trying to fix, for state workers, I had a bill to try and fix their overtime and their holiday pay. I had a bill to make it easier for people to comply and be able to have access to workers' compensation that they have a right to. I also have bills to try and make education more accessible, to put some more money into a need-based grant program, and I have a bill up on Tuesday to increase our South Dakota Opportunity Scholarship from $6,500 over 4 years to $7,000 over those 4 years. So, and I'm also interested in in healthcare and advocating, as I have been for years, for Medicaid expansion. So, just as the one Democrat up here, the things we're trying to work on is access to healthcare, access to education, and protecting workers' rights. And that's what we're working on every day in the legislature. And again, thank you for coming out today.
again, also like to thank everyone for being here today and good set of questions. One issue that didn't come up that has considerable economic impact in Sioux Falls is the new cyber program from DSU in Madison, where the actual facility, it's about $90 million total, will be located here in Sioux Falls at the Sanford complex out by the sports facilities and so on. DSU is one of the exclusive schools in the world on cybersecurity. There are more jobs than we could fill at Dakota State in 100 years probably. It's $90 million. It's some from the city, some from the state, some from the federal government, but it's going to have a huge impact on your internet security and so on, as well as $100,000 jobs here in Sioux Falls. Along with that, and I'm not bringing the bill this year, but I am part of a cybersecurity task force nationally and am working on a bill on internet privacy. A group that is works on Uniform Laws Committee has come out just this fall with a proposal, and I am working on that for next year to try to get that to where it will work good for South Dakota, so that your checking account and all your transactions and so on and your personal identity information is handled safer. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I'm going to continue on Senator Stalzer's. He kind of stole my thunder there. I really, really, really want you to take a look at this project. It was announced just 10 days ago for the cybersecurity program. Ladies and gentlemen, this is huge, huge. This is the next Citibank for South Dakota. The 14 years that I've spent in the legislature, one thing that we've talked about all the time is how do we stop the brain drain? How do we keep our kids here in South Dakota? Ladies and gentlemen, this is it. This is it. I mean, when this project gets up into full swing, we'll be graduating 400 students a year with degrees in cybersecurity. The job demand for that is 10 times that. These are really, really good jobs. $100,000 a year to start. If you've got a student that's thinking about college and thinking about where to go, please, please steer them toward Dakota State University. This program is huge. And it's going to enable our students to go to school here in South Dakota, to graduate, to start a family, live in South Dakota, with a good wage, a good job on that. This is huge. Thank you.
Representative Elliott.
Just thank everybody for coming out again. I'm glad to see a bigger crowd out here this year compared to last year. And I know we don't all agree on everything. There's times when you're sitting on the House floor and you take a vote, and if that whole board likes to agree, nobody opposes the bill, it causes me to second guess things a little bit. I'm glad there's opposition out there on both sides, because it causes us to think a little bit more about things instead of just going in the same direction all the time. So I think that's a good thing that we do question each other, and thanks for being here.
A flock of questions are left, and they're about child care, they're about impeachment, they're about cannabis, they're about meth, and what's to be done about meth addiction and shortages of dental hygienists and nurses, the heartbeat bill, teaching geography, and that there is a major center of study of geographic sciences in the USA in Sioux Falls. It needs to be expanded. Do you believe in local control? There's some people asking about that. Do you value teachers? You need to fund schools, and that's kind of the categories that we've left to speak about. We could go on probably all day, and I know you don't have time for all day. Don't we wish we could? But let's thank our major sponsor, AARP. Let us thank the Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce, the Sioux Falls Education Association. I don't think you had any trouble without having people running up and down the aisles and picking up your questions because we had an abundance. And we thank you for giving voice to issues and concerns that each of you have. My last question to everybody is, what one question would you wish was asked of you today that didn't get asked? There's an eager person.
First, this is an issue that actually got me into politics a number of years ago. We're facing tensions with more foreign intervention. That you see a lot in the headlines in the last couple of weeks. I wish there would be more questions in regards to war power, declarations of war, things along that nature.
Okay. Representative Woods.
Hadn't thought about that. There's a number of issues that are before the legislature that we didn't talk about today. I guess I would just, ask that you continue to pay attention and continue to send your emails and such, on those issues as they concern you. As was mentioned earlier, we do try to read everyone. I just looked at my email box. There's 144 emails in there, and that's just since I went through it and cleaned it out last night at 7 o'clock. So I know you're doing that. Please be patient with us on our responses.
I guess I would, if I could ask a question and maybe something about explaining how the legislative process and the initiated measure process vary. When I introduce a bill, it has to go to a committee where it can be amended. It goes to the floor for a debate where it can be amended. It then goes to the other chamber where the same thing happens. It gets reviewed and looked at and then goes to the floor. So we've got about 5 different opportunities to make it better. Initiated measures, unfortunately, don't go through that process. One person writes it, and then it becomes law. And part of the reason for the summer study and some of the bills on marijuana were to try to do that oversight, and unfortunately, it comes after the fact. And I hope that you bear with us, and we are trying very hard to follow the will of the people, but yet make it workable.
I would agree with the good senator to my right. I wish that we would have asked some more questions about initiated measures. That's really how I got into politics in South Dakota, was working on repeal of the sales tax on food in 2004 and limiting the use of the state airplane to state business in 2006 and raising the minimum wage in 2014 and then ending payday lending in 2016. And my experience with initiated measures just differs entirely from the good senator to my right, because I've written some of those and I've been in meetings where we've agonized over the language and sent it to the LRC and they give us style-informed corrections. And then we talk some more and send it through, and oftentimes it goes through multiple iterations. But what's great is that it's in South Dakota that we can do that, because I think it's basically a way for the public to say the legislature is ignoring us. It's a way to say we are upset, the legislature doesn't listen to us, they won't do what we want, and so we're going to put it on the ballot. And in the case of predatory lending, we couldn't get a bill out of committee. You know what the people of South Dakota voted on it? And they voted for 76%, right? It was the only thing in South Dakota more popular than Donald Trump. Right. So I'm a big proponent of the initiated measure process, and even though I'm glad you brought it up as a question. Thanks.
Well, I guess I'll bring it back around to the question that we had about, we feel we serve our constituency. And, I've always been a firm believer in good government. And that is why my name appears on the ballot, and I serve, and thankfully the people elect me to serve them. So I think good government is important. I don't think we always get it every day. Maybe some days, some of you think I'm part of bad government. I'm sure that can be said for all of us. But at the end of the day, I'd like to think for the majority of the time we are part of good government. And that's the reason why I serve. Believe me, I could be home, not here, trying to fix a broken washing machine, throwing pipes in the horse barn this week, and my son's done that. So.
Well, we thank the audience immensely for giving voice to issues and concerns and sending in your things. And we would like to thank our legislators, not only for their contributions to today's topic, but also to their service on our behalf in the Sioux Falls area. And I think they deserve a round of applause. Saturday, the 12th, is here at 10 o'clock for Southeastern Tech, Districts 9, 13, and 14. And remember, these are the districts you presently live in, not the new ones. But 9, 13, and 14, it skips a week, and then the next one will be the third and final. Yes, sir.
District 6 will be having a legislative coffee at City Hall this afternoon at 1:30 also. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
And I would just add, I would imagine that some of the folks up here have petitions that they might be circulating. So if you live in their district and you're a member of their party, you would be able to sign their nominating petition and help them get back on the ballot again.
And I have something to admit. The first question I put up that then would be gone was a question on transparency. So I thought I'd put it up there, and it slid down inside of all of this, and it vanished. The transparent question. So, yeah. If you want to see these unasked questions, you're free to come and look at them, and you're free to come back next week if you like, and call these people, text them, email them, write them a letter. And thank you all for coming.
And
I get to go home now.
yes,
You get to clean up.
yes, very nice.
Lucky you.
Before you disconnect, is there a way that we can test this tally light?
Yeah.